John Schlegel, someone I've known for several years. He's probably one of the most, successful and brilliant independent app developers out there. He's done really, really amazing things. And I was really psyched when I reached out and he said he would be willing to be the closing keynote today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to John. Let's give him a good round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is John Schlegel. I'm the founder and CEO of Uptime Software, and we're one of the leading developers of classic casual games for mobile. We make games that users know and love, like checkers, chess, and tic-tac-toe, make them available to users for free using an ad-supported model. We've been in business since 2008. In that time, we've done over 140 million application downloads across Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. And I think we've made a lot of mistakes along the way and done a lot of experimentation, and in the process, we've learned a lot about how to build a mobile application business. And so that's what I want to talk to you about today. I'm going to start by telling you the story of how Uptime Software got started, because it was a very scientific and rigorous process, and I think there are some good learnings in there for anybody else who might be interested in starting a mobile application business. So it all started back in 2004. And it started with this device, the Handspring Trio 600 smartphone. In my opinion, this is one of the worst smartphones ever made. It was the subject of a class action lawsuit due to poor manufacturing. And in the 18 months that I owned this phone, the screen broke 5 times. One time I left it on a pillow and I walked away, and I came back and the screen was broken. I have no idea how that happened. And so every time this device would break, I would go to Sprint, and they would say, I'd say, the screen is broken on this device. And they would say, well, you abused this device. You were abusive to the phone. And I would say, no, I didn't. This phone is a piece of you-know-what. And eventually, they would give me a new phone. So this happened 4 times. In 2005, the 5th time this happened, I was completely fed up with the Trio 600 smartphone. So I threw the Trio 600 smartphone in the trash, and I vowed never again to own another smartphone. And so I went out and I got the state-of-the-art iPod music player for my music, the iPod Classic 4th generation, which, if you remember, was that big rectangular brick with a scroll wheel that seemed really cool in 2005, but now looks completely archaic. And for my phone, I got the Motorola Razr V3M, which was the leading feature phone of the day. Completely bulletproof phone. It was a beautiful phone. And I love this setup. I could listen to my music on the iPod Classic, and I had the V3M for my phone calls. And I didn't have to worry about my screen breaking or my phone rebooting or any of the bad stuff that happened with my smartphone. So I had this set up for about 3 years until 2008. And in 2008, I hopped on a United airplane and went on a business trip to Seattle. And it's a long flight out to Seattle, so I had a few drinks on the plane. And when I got off the plane, I left my iPod on the plane. And I don't know if you know what happens when you leave something on the plane, but if you leave something on the plane, after you get off the plane, the cleaning crew comes on, and they steal whatever you left on the plane. I didn't know this, but some flight attendants on a future flight told me this. They said, your iPod got stolen. You're never going to see it again. Don't even bother calling the lost and found because they'll just laugh at you. And so my iPod took off on this airplane, and it was gone. And I was sad because I couldn't listen to music on the go anymore. Well, a few weeks later, I was still in my absent-minded professor phase, and I decided to do some laundry. Put my laundry in the washing machine, and then I had to make a call, and I couldn't find my phone anywhere. Looked all over the house for it, and I couldn't find it, so I just didn't make the call. And when I went to transfer the laundry from the washing machine to the dryer, there it was in the washing machine. Now, pro tip, if you ever leave your phone in the washing machine, what you should do is take it out and put it near a heating or air conditioning vent and just let it sit there for a few days until you're sure it's dry, and then turn it on and try to work it. And maybe it will work, but maybe it won't because it's been through the washing machine so much. I didn't do that. I just turned it on. And the bulletproof Razr V3M was broken. It was toast. So I had no iPod anymore. I couldn't listen to music on the go, and I didn't even have my feature phone anymore, so I couldn't make calls. So I took this as a sign from the iPhone gods on high, from Steve Jobs and Tim Cook on high, that it was time to go out and get an iPhone. And I bought myself the iPhone 3G, which was the next generation iPhone at the time. And my wife was really angry because I broke and lost all of these expensive electronic devices, so I fixed that by getting her an iPhone 3G too. So now we have these two iPhone 3Gs in the house. The App Store had just opened up to third-party developers. And so I had an opportunity to use these devices and go and look at the App Store and see what was out there. And there weren't very many apps in the App Store at all. There were about 10,000 apps when I first started using the iPhone 3G. And a lot of them were not very high quality. So I saw an opportunity there. I felt like there was an opportunity to bring professional quality software to the iPhone 3G to create things like the classic casual games that we're creating today, and to make them available to users using an ad-supported model. And so I saw that opportunity, and I did nothing. I just thought, that's a nice opportunity. And I sat around for a few months, and I went to my normal day job and did my day job things. And then this happened. This is Braden. Braden's 4 years old today, but in this picture, he's 3 weeks old. And Braden was born towards the end of 2008, and he was what you would call a difficult baby. He didn't like to sleep unless somebody was holding him. So my wife and I took turns 3 hours at a time holding Braden and trying to get him to go to sleep. And when somebody was holding him, it was really quiet. So I had a lot of time to myself between 1 and 4 a.m. holding this little baby and trying to figure out what I was going to do since there was nothing good on TV. So I decided to do some experimentation and to pursue that opportunity that I had seen earlier in the App Store. So while I was holding Braden with one arm, I was coding with the other arm. And I put together this very simple application, tic-tac-toe free. I just wanted to build the simplest application that I could think of to prove out, first, just publishing an application to the App Store and seeing if it could be successful. And second, whether mobile ads could really support an application. So I put this application together while I was on paternity leave in 2 weeks and published it to the App Store. And it went to #1 on the App Store, which is amazing. If you look at it, the graphics really aren't that great. I made them in PowerPoint. And, but in 2008, the bar was pretty low, so this thing went to #1 on the App Store. It started getting a lot of users, and revenue started coming in from the ads. And it became apparent that, one, users like these classic casual games. They like games like tic-tac-toe that they know and love. And two, that advertising can support a mobile application. So I was really excited about that. Built a few more similar apps. And then went out and built a team and had them start building apps as well. And so today we have 15 classic casual games like tic-tac-toe. We have over 20 million monthly active users, and in the last 4 years, we've done billions of gameplay minutes. But it all started with an iPhone or a razor in the washing machine and an iPod taking off on an airplane. So why did I tell you that story? Well, one is this. It takes a little bit of luck to build a successful business. Everybody I know who's ever had a successful business has had some luck. Larry King says those who have succeeded at anything and don't mention luck are just kidding themselves. So I can't help you with the luck part of things. But the other component of that story that I think was important was the experimentation. I think the most important part of that story was when Braden showed up. And not just because he was my first kid, but because Braden gave me, when we had Braden, I broke out of my day-to-day routine. Stopped going to work, I took paternity leave, I was up at 1 a.m. holding a baby, and it gave me an opportunity to experiment and to go after that idea I had come up with several months before. Nobody ever started a business just sitting around thinking about an idea. Start a business by actually doing things. So I think it's important for everybody to find their Braden. And you don't have to have a kid to do that. You can just tell yourself, I'm going to take 20 or 30 minutes out of my day to work on my idea or to experiment with something new. And by doing that, you can get yourself much closer to building a successful business. I think there are a lot of people who are walking around with great ideas, but who just haven't had the time or the opportunity to experiment with them in order to go out there and build a business because they've been too busy with day-to-day life and they haven't carved the time out of their day. So this is exactly why companies like Google give their employees 20% time so that they have the time to do experimentation and try to work with new ideas to see if they can build a company out of them. If you experiment and it fails, you can just try a different experiment. And as long as you're not taking up too much of your time, then it's no big deal. And you can just keep trying until you get something that sticks. Now, this is the part where I would tell you all about the things we did from 2008 to today to build the business from this one simple tic-tac-toe app into a 20 million MAU business. But as I was putting this talk together, I realized that that would really only be useful to you if you could hop in the DeLorean and fire up the flux capacitor and head back to 2008 when there were 10,000 apps in the App Store and it was a simpler and easier place to do business. But we're in 2012 today, and Apple recently announced that there are 700,000 apps on the App Store. Now, if you're thinking about building a mobile application business, that's an extremely daunting number. You look at that and say, 700,000 apps in the App Store. Is there room for any more apps? Have all the good ideas already been taken? Does it even make sense to try starting a mobile application business today? It seems really overwhelming. But if you think about the history of the App Store is only 4 years old. It's only been open for third-party developers since 2008. So think about desktop PC software. If we had said in 1981, all the good app ideas are taken, there's no sense developing any more PC software, we'd still be using Lotus 1-2-3 and Harvard graphics, and we would have missed out on a lot of great software applications. So I think despite the fact that there are 700,000 apps in the App Store is really still in its infancy. There are still a lot of opportunities out there. There's still a lot of new concepts that haven't been tried yet. And there's also a great opportunity to improve on existing ideas that are in the App Store and make them better. And it all starts with an idea. But how do you come up with an idea? More than any other point in the process, I think this is where people get stuck as they start thinking about building a mobile application business. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the last 4 years who have said, wow, this mobile application thing is taking off. There seems to be a lot of money in mobile applications. I really want to build a mobile app business, but I just don't have that great idea yet. So I'm just going to sit around and wait until that idea comes to me, and then I'll start the business. And 3 years later, you talk to them, and they're still sitting around waiting for that idea to come. But instead of 10,000 apps in the App Store, now there are hundreds of thousands of apps in the App Store. So, I think that's really unfortunate. If you look at what Guy Kawasaki has to say about ideas, he says a good idea is about 10% of building a successful business, and implementation, hard work, and luck is the other 90%. So if a good idea is only 10% of building a successful business, why is everybody stuck trying to come up with that great idea? I think it's because we're setting the bar too high for what constitutes an idea that you can build a business on. I mean, think about the stuff that's gone down in the mobile application market over the last 5 years. If I told you 5 years ago that putting a frame around a picture and making it look like it came out of the 70s was a $1 billion business, you would have laughed at me. If I told you that making a mobile version of Pictionary was a $250 million business, you would have laughed at me. And if I told you that Bad Piggies and Angry Birds could turn into a multi-billion-dollar entertainment franchise, you definitely would have laughed at me. And I mean, look at the things that fly outside of mobile as far as businesses go. Did you know that you can take tap water and put it in a bottle and sell it to people for $1? And that's a $1 billion business? That's a multi-billion-dollar business. You can take coffee and sell it to people for $5 in a place that plays Kenny G all day long? And that's a multi-billion-dollar business? Really? It's crazy. So your ideas don't have to be that great. You just have to execute on them well. Well, fortunately, a few years ago, I went to business school, and I took a lot of entrepreneurship classes when I was in business school. So I had the opportunity to learn about exactly what constitutes a great idea. So I will save you the business school tuition and all the time in business school, and I will tell you that right now. And so now you'll know the criteria for a great idea. Criteria number 1 is that a great idea has to be original. It has to be something that nobody's ever thought of before, that you're able to achieve first mover advantage on, and that you can get way out in front on before anybody even thinks of thinking about your idea. So that's the first one. Have a super original idea. Second thing is that your idea needs to be defensible. You need to have some underlying core technology that underlies your product and that nobody can replicate. Ideally, you'll have a huge patent portfolio that defends this underlying technology, or you'll have some trade secrets that keep people from replicating your underlying technology. The final thing is that your business idea needs to be scalable. And by that, I mean that revenues can grow much more rapidly than expenses as you grow the business, so that you can have a business that's more and more and more profitable and becomes the next Google over time. Now, I've been out of business school for a few years, and I know now that 2 out of 3 of these criteria are BS. They are not necessary to build a successful business. Only one of these is really necessary. And so look at the slide and try to figure out which one that is, and I'll give you my thoughts on the next few slides. Let's talk about originality first. Think about some of the biggest tech successes over the last few years. We had Facebook that just went IPO this year, right? And before Facebook, there was MySpace. And before MySpace, there was Friendster. So Facebook is at least the 3rd iteration of consumer social networking out there. And now it's a I don't even know how many billion dollars now because it goes up and down every day. But it's a multi-billion-dollar company. Think about Google. Before Google, there was AltaVista. And before AltaVista, there was Lycos. And before Lycos, there was Yahoo. So Google is probably the 5th or 6th iteration of a search engine. And now it's a $224 billion company. So a lot of the biggest tech successes of the last few years haven't been built on original ideas. They've been built on innovations of existing ideas, doing existing ideas better than they've been done before. And the same thing holds true for mobile applications. If you take Angry Birds, before Angry Birds, there was Crush the Castle. Crush the Castle has very similar gameplay mechanics to Angry Birds. You fling projectiles at a castle that's been built by knights in Crush the Castle and try to knock it down. In Angry Birds, you fling birds at a castle that's been built by pigs. So the guys from Rovio took the knights and turned them into cute little pigs that snort and grunt when you try to knock them down, and took the cannonballs and rocks that you throw and Crush the Castle and turned them into flying birds, and created a cartoony version of the app that's definitely nicer than Crush the Castle. But the difference in those two apps is that one is a multi-billion-dollar entertainment franchise now, and one is just an iPhone app that's doing okay. And the difference is just a few tweaks to the gameplay mechanics. Take Doodle Jump. I don't know if all of you have played Doodle Jump, but Doodle Jump is a game where you have an alien and he tries to jump up on platforms. And the goal is to not let the alien fall off the screen, because if the alien falls off the screen, for some reason all the platforms that scroll off the screen before are gone and your alien dies. So before there was Doodle Jump, there was a game called Pappy Jump. And Pappy Jump has very similar mechanics to Doodle Jump, but instead of an alien jumping up on these platforms, it's a smiley face that's jumping up on the platforms. Smiley face is not nearly as cute as an alien, so I think that's why people like Doodle Jump better. But they're essentially the same game. The creators of Doodle Jump took Pappy Jump, they put some doodle graphics around it, they added some power-ups so the alien could get a beanie and fly, and the alien could get springy shoes and bounce up real high. And then they released a game that did tens of millions of dollars in paid app revenue, while Pappy Jump is another iPhone app that's doing okay. What about this one? I think everybody can see what the inspiration for Words with Friends is. And to New Toy's credit, they got Words with Friends to the iPhone market before Scrabble for mobile even hit the iPhone market. And they brought a good gameplay mechanic, which is the ability to play with friends by correspondence. So you can have multiple games going at once, and you can exchange moves with them without being in real time. And so those are good innovations to the basic Scrabble gameplay model. That turned into a $53 million business for New Toy, largely on the basis of this one app, Words with Friends. They sold to Zynga for $53 million in cash. And so there's a lot of opportunity to just take existing ideas and make them better. And these are just a few examples. There are many, many applications in mobile that are either expansions of existing ideas or have taken ideas that have worked on the desktop and have come to mobile. Let's talk about defensibility. Is there anything really inherently defensible about an alien that bounces on platforms? Or about flinging birds at pigs? You might say maybe the physics engine of Angry Birds is something that could be defensible, except that it's Box 2D. It's an open source physics engine. So even that isn't really defensible. But these are great implementations of games that users really like, and they've turned into very, very successful businesses without having originality and without having defensibility. Another thing that really helps is showing off new platform features. If you go to Google I/O or you go to Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, they're usually talking about some features of the new version of their operating system that they're excited about. And if you integrate those features before they release the new version of the operating system, they'll typically have a feature category right around the operating system release that you can get your app put into. So for example, in iOS 5, Apple introduced turn-based gameplay using Game Center. We integrated that into a number of our apps, including Checkers and Tic-Tac-Toe. and ended up getting featured by Apple as a result of that in the turn-based games category. So that can be useful. The other thing we found they really like is doodle graphics. If you make a game that has hand-drawn graphics, they really seem to love doodle graphics for some reason. And they love shiny things too, so games that have neon glowing graphics, anything called glow anything, seems to get featured a lot. So if all else fails, just make a hand-drawn glowing thing, and you'll probably end up getting featured. Let's talk about direct ad spend now. It can cost anywhere from 50 cents to $4 to acquire a user for a free app using direct ad spend, depending on the channel you use and the quality of user that you're looking for. So you need to make sure that you understand the lifetime value of your customers before you undertake spending on direct advertising. If the lifetime value of your customer is 25 cents and you spend $2 to acquire every customer, that's a bad business. You're losing $1.75 each time you buy one of those customers. If your lifetime value is $5 and you can acquire users for $1, that's a good business. So making sure you understand the lifetime value of your customers, and that's the revenue that you earn from an average customer over their entire lifetime with you as a user, is very important. There's a few ways you can do that. You can integrate an analytics solution. Appsler and Contagion are both providing support for lifetime value calculations now. Or you can roll your own. A lot of publishers are actually rolling their own lifetime value calculator framework now. The other thing to bear in mind when you're looking at doing ad spend is that it takes a pretty large budget to get up into the higher echelons of the App Store. If you're targeting the top 25, you're not going to get there on $100. You're not going to get there on $1,000 either. There are developers out there who are spending $50,000 to $100,000 in a weekend or over the course of a few days to drive their app into the top 25 or the top 50. So you need to make sure you're prepared to make that kind of investment, because if you're going to put $100 or $200 into mobile advertising, you're not going to see much of a return, and it's kind of going to be a waste of time. Next one is press releases. I think press releases work really well for apps that are unique, that have some innovative feature that the press might be interested in, or for apps that have a compelling human interest story. So if you're a 14-year-old and you made an app, there's a good chance that the news is going to want to talk about you, because being a 14-year-old who's made an app is really, really cool. And everybody wants to hear about that. So that's one way that you can get exposure. Another way to increase the odds that you get picked up in press releases is to put some data in your press release. If you say something about your revenue, and it's a big number, you'll get picked up by the press. If you say something about iOS versus Android, there's a good chance that a tech blog or somebody will want to pick you up. Those guys love these kind of factoids that they get from developers. So if you can sprinkle your press releases with any hard data, that can be helpful to you in getting press. Final thing I want to talk about is social media. I think this is one of the best forms of advertising because, one, it's free, and two, people are more likely to act on recommendations from their friends than anything else. So I've got here some screenshots from Disney's Where's My Water, and I think they've done a great job with their social media integration. They've got Facebook and Twitter buttons on the main screen of the application that let users tell their friends about the app. And then when you complete a level, they also let you like the app. And I think you can actually like the level and announce your score. So I think that second type of integration, where you're giving users an opportunity to brag about their progress, is probably the best one. Users are more likely to tweet or to make a Facebook post about having completed some level than they are just to randomly tweet about your app. And they're likely to do that repeatedly if they do it, which means their friends are going to keep seeing it. And if that message goes out to their friends enough, some of their friends will probably go and download it just to find out what their friend is playing. So social media can be a great way to get some free advertising, and all you have to do is stick some buttons in various places of your app to give users an opportunity to do that. So just some closing thoughts, and then everybody can get to the bar and we can have some cocktails. First, find your Braden. Take the time to pursue your ideas and experiment rather than just waiting for something to happen or keeping an idea in the back of your mind but not doing anything about it. Find the thing that's going to take you out of your day-to-day life and that's going to get you to experiment with your ideas, because that's the first step in building a business, is just doing something with the ideas that you have. Don't stress too hard about finding the perfect idea. Just pick an idea that you're passionate about and execute on it. And once you start executing an idea, you can see if it's not going to work. You can see ways you might be able to pivot it or iterate on it in order to get an even better idea and to build a business that way. I think you definitely want to launch first on Android or iOS. Which one is up to you? You can look at the report card I made for those two and try to think about it. But make sure you have a path for porting to other platforms quickly. So something like Coco's 2DX, which is a cross-platform game development engine, is great if you're a game developer. You can develop for both platforms at once. And then finally, use all of the marketing channels you have available to generate buzz for your app. And try to hit them all at the same time if you can, so that you have one concentrated period of buzz. But don't spend all your money on marketing without understanding the lifetime value of your customer and thinking about your ROI. So those are my tips for building a successful mobile app business in the App Store, despite the fact that there are 700,000 apps there. If you got any questions, you can definitely ask me during cocktails.
Awesome. That was amazing.
Oh,
Great
thanks.
job. Hey, don't go anywhere. Let's pick some winners here. All right, let's just.